and successive governments have always said that power will be better, electricity provision is getting better, and yes, they've also said, let's be patient. But at what point and what time will this patience yield fruit? What effect have we felt, especially in sectors of agriculture and industry, for our economic development? My guest believes that since the Electricity Power Sector Reform Act of 2005 and other regulations, modest progress has been made in creating a regulatory environment, but sees more conflict in implementation.
Privatization really started about 2001 because the concept up to having the legislation, yes, the actual taking steps was about 2010, 2011 when it was full blown. And handover was about November 1st, 2013. Yeah, so I think we've made progress, to be honest. We're not where we should be, but we definitely have made progress.
So the Reform Act, the Power Reform Act of 2005, how come it's still something that works, especially when we decided to privatize in 2013?
Okay, in my own view, I think it was well thought out. I think that usually legislation, regulations are vehicles for implementing policy. There was a policy framework through the National Electric Power Policy, which specified where we wanted to be in 20 years, in 15 years, in 30 years. We're not even quite there because certain things ought to have been done 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Some of them are just being done now. I would see conflict in more of implementation. For example, there are issues around the eligible customer regulations and whether the discos are going to be pushed out of business or they're going to lose many of their customers, particularly the high value customers, maximum demand customers, and those categories of customers. For many of them, that's a problem, and they'll consider that a conflict. But I have a slightly different view. I think it's not a conflict because, first, the Electric Power Sector Reform Act provides for some transition electricity payments to the distribution companies under certain circumstances. One. Secondly, there is even an opportunity for the electricity distribution companies to remain conduits. There will be just transportation media or transportation bodies under distribution use of system agreements. So even if you want to buy electricity, there's still that option that you use a distribution company already that has a strong network. The problem is where they do not have sufficient infrastructure, where the quality of the infrastructure is in question. Otherwise, I mean, no investor wants to invest in new electricity infrastructure, particularly from the distribution end, and then have to wait for 20 years to recover their costs. They'll rather use infrastructure already in place. It's only when that infrastructure does more harm than good that they would rather just go it themselves or get someone go through another medium. So I think that the problem is more from the distribution companies not being up to speed in certain cases. When you speak to the distribution companies, they will say things around the multi-year tariff or that the tariffs being not economical, not cost reflective, such that the cost of getting that electricity by the discos outweighs the price at which they sell. That's one of the arguments, and not a bad argument. So it's interesting. It's everyone sitting together and then determining what's the best way forward for the sector, and that's one of the ways we can make progress. It's not so much about blame game or name calling and all of that.
So let's